Hello, Colt here, and I am making this video because tomorrow is a very big day for me. I have been on surveillance for stomach cancer now for 5 years, actually a little over 5 years now, and that's kind of the standard range for this cancer. So I have gone in routinely over the course of my treatment and recovery, and then in the intervening time, it was much more frequent early on. I would go in once every 3 months, and after a few years, it was once every 6 months, and this is the last scheduled one. So, assuming everything goes well tomorrow, this is going to be my last scan. Unless something comes up in the future, I'll probably still get endoscopies on a semi-regular basis, just because that's how my cancer was discovered to begin with, and I want to make sure that I stay on top of things there. But this is the last scheduled one. And of course, I really hope that it's a clear one and that this is, in fact, the end of that, but we never really know. We never know what we're going to find, unfortunately. I didn't think I was going to get diagnosed with cancer in the first place, but here I am, thankfully still here 5 years later. I often will project a lot of optimism and lack of concern when it comes to these scans, but truth be told, I'm scared shitless whenever these come up. As I've mentioned in a previous video, I notice that my body tenses up, I get stuck in my own head, I push people away, I have a difficult time interacting with people sometimes, I can't sleep. There's just a lot that goes into it, and it's because it's a big deal, and you're always worried about, what might this scan say? And I've had some difficulties over the course of the last few months. I don't know that they're anything to really be concerned about, but when you've got something like this on the horizon, you can't help but be worried, and you can't help but think, maybe things aren't as good as I thought they were. The worst part about this is I will go in tomorrow morning and they're going to do blood work. So I don't have a port anymore. I haven't had a port for a few years. So they'll end up taking it just out of my arm. And then I'm going to get in a big long tube, and I'm going to get some instructions read to me, and I'm going to hear these whirring magnets kind of flying all around me in that tube, and I'll be stuck in my head for a little bit while that scan gets completed. The great thing about it is I could get my results tomorrow, or I could get my results in a week, and I really hope I get the results tomorrow because I don't want to sit through the weekend, and I certainly don't want to sit an entire week waiting for results, because as a cancer patient and cancer survivor, you have a tendency to let your mind go to the darkest place possible. So if they're not giving me my results now, there's got to be a reason for it. If there's a reason for it, it's probably not good. That's not necessarily true. That's maladaptive thinking, but I'm just being honest. That's the experience that we deal with. Now, I'm not a superstitious person. However, I've got my own rituals, and they're things that I engage in anytime that I go through a scan. And this is going to be just a video of my prep for a scan. I'm going to do a separate video to talk about the scan and the results. I probably will not publish that until a week from now, because regardless of when I get my results, I'm going to meet with my oncologist for hopefully the last time next Friday. So I will do kind of a part 2 to this video. But I wanted to get something kind of in the can and uploaded again, because part of this this is my way of coping, and the last few months especially have been pretty rough on me, and the last few weeks especially. So again, those kind of rituals I engage in, and I'm going to put up separate pictures here, and I'm going to try to explain why these particular things are important to me. But the thing that I do is there are some items that I take with me to all of my scans and all of my appointments, and it's just what I've always done. At first it was comforting, and then they almost just became like my good luck charms, and I've got reasons for that, and I'm going to go through that. So the first piece, I am a watch nerd, and this is actually one of my least favorite watches. If it weren't for the fact that it has sentimental value, I probably wouldn't keep it. But here's the story. The day that I was diagnosed with cancer, this watch arrived in the mail, and it was something that I backed on Kickstarter for a company that I've purchased a few watches from in the past, and you'll get a better picture of it. But I have a lot of watches. I like variety when it comes to watches. It's just something that I've always enjoyed. But from the day that I was diagnosed all the way through when I finished my treatment, I wore this watch every single day. And it's a watch that I now wear to every single cancer-related appointment. And again, it's a bit superstitious, I get that, but it's just part of the ritual, and it's something that I do every single time. So that's the first piece. The second piece, and this is way back from one of my earlier appointments with my oncologist, Dr. Jha. And my cancer had originally been diagnosed at stage 1. The endoscopic ultrasound showed that it was really stage 3 is what we were looking at, with likely lymph node involvement and a tumor that was a lot bigger than we originally expected, a lot more invasive than we originally expected, and one that was spreading up from my stomach, through my esophagus, encircling my esophagus, causing a lot of difficulties. And my biggest concern when I found out that things were worse than we originally thought was that I was going to get told that we weren't treating this to cure it anymore. And palliative care is something that's very important, and it has a huge part in a lot of cancer patients' treatment. But there is something that's disheartening when you're told, we don't think we can cure this. We don't think that's in the cards for you. And so I met with my oncologist after my restaging, and I remember being tearful, and I remember asking, is this something that we're still trying to cure, or is this palliative at this point? And he said to me, this is curable. And I was a bit taken aback by that, because the other clinic that I consulted with wasn't nearly as optimistic. But Dr. Jha again said, this is curable. And his nurse grabbed one of his business cards, and she wrote that down on the business card. And this is something that I now carry around with me, and I always keep safe, because it's such a important message. It was such an important message for me to receive at the time, especially. I needed to hear that. So you can guess that my pockets get pretty stuffed when it comes to these appointments, for sure. This is, and I have to say, I'm definitely not the most religious person in the world by any means. But this is something that was given to me by my mother. So My mother, as I've mentioned before, died of cancer 1 week to the day after my 17th birthday. It was the second time that she had cancer. The first time was breast cancer, the second time was lung cancer, and it was the lung cancer that took her. And I was caregiver for her. I took her to appointments, and she gave me this necklace on my 17th birthday. So this is actually the last gift that I ever got from my mother. And again, I'm not a religious person, but the symbol is one of my mother's love, and that she was always there for me. And even though she's not physically here anymore, I know she's with me in spirit. And as I've told people before, watching my mom fight her cancer and go through what she went through, and I know that she kept going because of me and because she wanted to do as much as she could to make sure that she was going to be around for me. That taught me a lot. I'm naturally a stubborn person. I'm naturally one that doesn't give up. And my mom's approach to her own cancer is one that has really kept me going at times. So this always comes with me to my appointments. And this is one of those things where, they say that material possessions don't matter and anything can get replaced. This can't get replaced. Yeah, I could find an exact same necklace like this, but it wouldn't be the same. It wouldn't be the one that my mother gave me. And I would do anything in my power to make sure that this remained in my possession. Anything. Sticking with the theme, this is my father's rosary from when he was a child. And again, it's something that is important to me not because of the religious symbolism. It's important to me because of what it represents. If the necklace was my mother, this is my father. When my ex-wife was going through an especially difficult time in her life, I got her this bracelet. And it just says, "Keep fucking going." And when I was diagnosed with cancer, she gave it to me. So she may not be somebody who's part of my life in that way anymore, but it's still important. And it means a lot to me. And piggybacking on that, at the same time, she gave me this bracelet that just says, "Fuck cancer." Again, I'm going to give you better pictures because I'm not going to shove this up to the lens right now. But I wear this to all my appointments as well. Last year, my friend Gretchen at Advocacy Day, she and her niece made bracelets, and they made me a bracelet, and it says "Brave." And this is another one that I wear to all of my appointments at this point. And last but not least, there was somebody who I met. It was at a really dark point in my treatment. I think I've told the story before, but there was somebody that I met online who was diagnosed at the same time as I was, and he and I spoke quite a bit online. We never met in person. We always kind of talked about how once we were through our treatment that we wanted to meet. His name was David, and he was a war correspondent before he retired. And he was just this tough guy. And I don't mean tough like, you know, big burly badass. I mean like the type of guy who's tough in that he's resilient, but also caring and compassionate and empathetic. And we lost him, and it was in a hurry. He had complications, he had a recurrence, and he went way quicker than the doctors ever thought possible. And I've probably used this analogy before, but being a cancer patient and a cancer survivor, sometimes it feels like you're in a lifeboat and your ship is sunk and you know there are other survivors out there, and sometimes there's another survivor right next to you in another boat. And that was David for me. He was in the lifeboat next to me, and we were floating towards shore. And we thought we could see land on the horizon, and David's lifeboat sunk, and there was nothing that anybody could do. And it devastated me, because here was this guy who, you know, he and I were in it together, and we were going to get through this together. And like so many people I have met, he was married, he had kids, he had so many reasons to live, and he didn't. And that really broke me. And at that point, I didn't know that I could have that connection with other survivors anymore. And I especially didn't know if I'd ever be able to mentor survivors and be there for survivors like people were there for me. And I felt incredibly guilty about that, but I just didn't think I could do it. I thought that part of me was broken. And it might have been the day of or the day after he died, as I'm kind of lamenting that loss, I had a woman reach out to me on Twitter because she had read about my story. And her name was Linda, and she was diagnosed at a similar stage as I was, and we developed a connection, and we talked all the time. And she was an incredibly kind and loving person, and I got to know her daughter, who I still keep in touch with on occasion, and I'm happy that she's doing well. But Linda unfortunately had a lot of difficulties, and her cancer spread, and she did a clinical trial of PIPAC, and that was unfortunately not successful. And I purchased her a necklace, and I purchased myself a matching one, because again, she was somebody else who I had a connection with. And it was when she was having a lot of difficulty over coming to terms with the fact that she was going to have to do some pretty intensive treatments. And the inscription on it, it says, "I've come so far, I think I can run on just a little bit longer." And unfortunately, I sent Linda her necklace, and I don't know that it made it in time. Because she, again, was in pretty rough shape, and when it came down to it, she couldn't get through the treatment. Her body was too weak at that point. And one of my biggest regrets about Linda is she called me one night, and I didn't answer because I had fallen asleep. And I woke up eventually and I saw the missed call, and I figured, well, I'll call tomorrow. And when I reached out the next day, I didn't get an answer. And her daughter told me that she was gone. So I wear this not necessarily because it's a message that I need to hear. I wear this in remembrance of Linda, because for all the things and all the loss that we experience, what Linda did for me was when I was in a really dark spot and I said I couldn't do this anymore, Linda got me to keep going. And she got me to accept that loss is a part of this community. And because of her, I'm still here and I'm still involved and I'm mentoring patients and I'm doing my best to help people, even though I couldn't help her. So that's a bit of an insight into my mentality when it comes to these scans, and my anxieties and my feelings when it comes to these scans, and also the ritual that I go through. I will make a part 2 to this when I have some clear answers. I hope it's happy, but we never know. But that's kind of life in general. We never know the future. And I mean, hell, I could get declared cancer free, and I could get hit by a bus the next day. You don't know. That's just the way that life works. But I would like to worry less about my own cancer so I can focus more on helping those who are going through this. So thanks for taking a few minutes to watch. As usual, if you have questions, feel free to reach out to me. You can leave questions in the comments. You can contact me directly. I'm not too hard to find. And again, if there are other topics that are of interest, please let me know. If you're going through this, and I've plugged this over and over and over again, I'm going through what is hopefully my last scan during Stomach Cancer Awareness Month. And if this is an important topic to you, if this is something that has affected you or your family, I would absolutely recommend that if you want to donate your money somewhere where it's going to make a difference and it's going to do good. Debbie's Dream Foundation was fantastic to me, and their description is going to not only be, the link is going to not only be in the description, but in the card here. And if you're struggling and you need help, Debbie's Dream Foundation is a great resource. They connect you with mentors, with information. If you have questions about how to navigate the medical system, they can help out with that. If you need to know of good medical systems, certainly we have folks there who can help out with that as well. But just in general, it was a great organization when I needed them, and they continue to do fantastic work. So thank you for watching, and wish me luck tomorrow.